Say the word dodo, and what comes to mind? A joke, right? A synonym for stupid. It's the poster child for being too dumb, too clumsy, and just too out of touch to survive. We see this bumbling creature in cartoons, waddling its way into oblivion. This image is so powerful, so baked into our culture, we've just accepted it as fact. But what if that story is a lie? What if the dodo was actually an intelligent survivor, and the real story of its extinction is more tragic, and more relevant to our own future, than you can imagine? The caricature of the dodo is one we all know. A fat, flightless bird, so witless it had no fear of the sailors who landed on its island, practically lining up to be dinner. We're told it was an evolutionary failure, a dead end. The phrase, dead as a dodo, isn't just about extinction, it's a final judgment on the bird's supposed incompetence. It's a simple story, it's memorable, and it's completely wrong. This image was stitched together from confused, second-hand accounts from 17th-century sailors and the fact that for centuries, we had very few complete skeletons. Early drawings were all over the place, often exaggerating its size and awkwardness. Honestly, this picture of a hopelessly silly creature was easier to swallow than the more disturbing truth, that a perfectly successful animal was wiped out in the blink of an eye. The myth of the dumb dodo isn't really about the dodo. It's a comforting fable that lets us off the hook, shifting the blame from our actions to the victim's own supposed failings. It makes the tragedy feel less like a murder and more like an unfortunate accident. To get to the truth, we have to go back to a time before a single human foot ever touched its home. Picture the island of Mauritius before the 16th century. A volcanic jewel in the Indian Ocean, wrapped in lush forests and totally isolated. For millions of years, life here evolved in a world without a single major predator. In this paradise, the dodo wasn't a failure, it was a masterpiece of adaptation. Its ancestors were likely pigeons that flew to the island. Finding tons of food on the forest floor and no predators to escape from, they did something brilliantly efficient, they gave up flight. Flying burns an incredible amount of energy. By staying on the ground, the dodo could grow much larger, up to 3 feet tall and maybe 50 pounds. This wasn't clumsy, it was a winning strategy. And despite being drawn as perpetually fat, evidence suggests it had seasonal fat cycles, slimming down in the summer and fattening up for the breeding season. The dodo was perfectly built for its world. It was a fruit eater, using its large, hooked beak to break open fallen fruits and using gizzard stones to digest tough seeds. It nested on the ground and laid a single, precious egg, a totally normal trait for island birds with no predators to worry about. For countless generations, this was a recipe for success. The dodo wasn't living on borrowed time. It was a thriving, well-adapted species, the king of its own private kingdom. Its defining trait wasn't stupidity, but innocence. It had no concept of fear because, in its world, there was nothing to fear. And that innocence would become its fatal flaw. The biggest lie about the dodo is that it was dumb. But modern science has found a way to fact-check this claim, even though the dodo is long gone. The breakthrough came from a rare, perfectly preserved dodo skull. Using high-resolution CT scans, scientists created a virtual model of the dodo's brain. And what they found was stunning. The dodo's brain-to-body size ratio was right on the money for a bird of its size, not huge, but definitely not small. In fact, it was proportioned almost exactly like the brain of its closest living relative, the common pigeon. And as anyone who has seen pigeons navigate a chaotic city knows, they are far from bird-brained. Pigeons are smart enough to be trained, recognize human faces, and even understand basic numbers. By this metric, the dodo was likely just as clever. But the scans revealed another surprise, a kind of sensory superpower. The dodo had unusually large olfactory bulbs, the part of the brain that processes smell. For most birds, who rely on their amazing vision, this area is tiny. The dodo's powerful sense of smell likely helped it sniff out ripe fruits on the dark forest floor. This wasn't a dumb animal, this was a specialized forager with a sensory world we're just beginning to grasp. Its reputation for stupidity came from a simple misunderstanding. It wasn't dumb for not fearing humans, it was behaving exactly as a creature that had never known a predator should. In 1598, the dodo's world was shattered. Dutch sailors, the first humans to settle on Mauritius, landed on the island. For them, it was just a pit stop for fresh water and food. For the island's ecosystem, it was an apocalypse. The sailors met the dodo, a bird that, having never seen a large mammal before, showed no fear. It was curious, but not scared. Sailors' journals mention how easy it was to hunt them. They could just walk up and herd the birds onto their boats for fresh meat. This was seen not as a product of the dodo's unique evolution, but as proof of its stupidity. But while hunting definitely hurt the dodo population, it wasn't what sealed their fate. The real assassins weren't the men with clubs, but the silent stowaways they brought with them. With the humans came their companions, rats, pigs, and monkeys. For the fragile ecosystem of Mauritius, these invasive species were a biological plague. The dodo had evolved for millions of years without ground predators, so it laid its single egg in a simple nest on the forest floor. To pigs and rats, these unguarded nests were an all-you-can-eat buffet. They devoured the eggs and chicks, wiping out an entire generation before it could even hatch. At the same time, the dodo's home was being torn down. Forests were cleared for timber and settlements, destroying the bird's habitat and food source. The dodo was caught in a perfect storm. It was being hunted by humans, its young were being eaten by invasive predators, and its home was disappearing from under its feet. Its intelligence and adaptations, so perfect for the world it knew, were useless. There was no time to evolve fear, no way to defend its nests from creatures it had never seen before. The end came shockingly fast. The first sighting was in 1598. The last one was in 1662. In less than a century, a species that had existed for millennia was gone. It didn't wander into extinction, it was erased. The extinction of the dodo is more than a sad story, it's a profound lesson. The dodo was not an evolutionary failure. It was a success, a creature intelligently adapted to its world. Its tragedy is that its world was destroyed faster than it could ever adapt. Its story is the first, and most famous, cautionary tale of the devastating consequences of human expansion. It's a stark reminder that when we barge into fragile ecosystems, we become a cataclysmic force. The dodo stands as a ghost that haunts our relationship with the natural world. And now, its story might be getting a new chapter. Scientists are currently working on a de-extinction project, using the dodo's preserved DNA to try and bring back a version of this incredible bird. But this raises a powerful question: even if we can, should we? By understanding the truth, that the dodo was an intelligent survivor, not a foolish caricature, we are forced to confront the real lesson of its demise, that our arrival is not always a blessing. We must learn from the dodo, or we are doomed to repeat its story until all we have left are the ghosts of what we failed to protect.